Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Scenic Route Astrology. Makayla here, evolutionary astrologer, and I'm coming to talk to you about the Virgo New Moon that was on August 27th and the astrology up until September 9th. I do apologize for my followers that this video is a couple of days late. I've been under the weather. So I was just sick on the 27th, 26th, and I'm kind of recovering now. So I didn't want to leave this new moon without a video because it's very detailed in Virgo fashion, and it's not a simple one. So I really wanted to flesh out what I was seeing in the energy unfolding and energetically what I think would be important for people to focus in on. And over the next week, up until we have the moon shift into Pisces and we get into the full moon in Pisces, I just think that this energy this year is so important, individually and collective wise. And these videos are important to me to do. So I love talking about astrology, and there's been a lot that's come up personally on my level that is so relative to the energy right now. And I'll actually get into it while we look at the new moon chart and how it's connected, different perspectives that I've been seeing going on. I'm heavily into the app Clubhouse. I really just like listening to different people's perspectives and ideas of what's going on. I get a lot of my news through that. Not all of the news is correct, of course, but it's like a bunch of journalists, right? Like everybody's like their own journalist, and they get together on this app. So I highly encourage you to find me on the Clubhouse app and start joining me in those rooms, getting into discussions. I think it's a really great way for the world to connect because there's people from all over the world connecting on this app. And I'm transitioning from different types of social media. I don't really consider this one a social media app because there's no photos except for your little profile picture, right? There's nothing like that. It's just basically people and their mic, their phone mic, and you can either listen or you can hop in conversations. You can start your own rooms, and it's really different. And I do feel like we might be heading towards that type of connection now. Again, this is just my own personal perspective. I've had these conversations with close friends, and our groups tend to reflect who we are as people too. So that's just kind of where I'm aligning. But I do encourage you to check out the app if you haven't. And again, this is related to the energy that I'm going to talk about today. I'm just going to get into the chart because I'd rather you not look at me while I'm sick. So I'm going to share my screen. And again, I'm using iLuna astrology software. You can get it. The link will be in the show notes down below. You can get it for 10% off. You can cancel at any time. And I think it's a really amazing astrology software. I've been using them for quite a while. And yeah, you get 10% off with my discount code. There's only a few of us that have it. It's really easy to use. You can save charts on this app. You basically, whether you're a professional astrologer, I personally like the colors like a ton. And they keep growing. They keep adding new stuff to their software too. And they're relatively new, like maybe 2 years old, and they've just like literally advanced so quickly. They're busting their ass over there. So just really highly recommend this software. And if you're a practicing astrologer and your clients want to start tracking their own transits and learning on their own, it's just an affordable software. I love astroseek.com. We love what they do, but I find it really confusing to read the chart off of Astroseek. So I just encourage people to use iLuna. So the new moon happened on August 27th at 4:16 a.m. in Providence, Rhode Island, in the sign of Virgo. Okay. And so you're going to want to know where 4 degrees of Virgo is in your chart. I'd also look to where your 6th house placements are and where Mercury is in your chart to get a deeper layer of this. When we have a new moon, the sun and the moon are conjoined together, and we're starting a new phase, like a complete new phase, because there's a prior lifetime phase in this lifetime or other lifetimes that have completed themselves. And so here we are in this new start, but it's a very dark time. Okay, the seed is being planted in the soil. And Dane Rudar talks about the lunar phases in the perspective of how plants are grown. Okay, their whole process of planting and blooming, and the fruit blooming off the leaves and the branches of the trees, and then it being plucked, and then the disseminating phase will be, you know, the decaying process of the plant and so forth, and then the whole cycle begins again. So I'm working on a lunar course. Of course, I've been mentioning this, but just to give you some deeper perspective too, we can use the lunar cycles in relation to the phases of the seasons as well. You know, the moon is kind of broken up. The cycles can be broken up into 2 phases, 3 phases, 4 phases, 8 phases, 11 phases, and different types of astrology and cultures over the years have broken it up into different categories. So, which I go into in my moon course. But when we're looking at this, we're in the new phase. So we're at the very beginning process of this cycle, of this Virgo process in our cycle. And Virgo is refined, and it's a part of the part of the zodiac where we are taking our soul purpose and our ego and our personality that we're living through in this lifetime, and we're becoming more humble with it, and we're cleaning it up. Okay, we're not spilling it out all over the place. We're looking into the fine details, and we're really focusing in on like what is healthy for our process and our journey in this life, and what do we want to take with us and maybe isn't serving us anymore and leave behind. You know, it's analytical. It's a mercurial type of energy where we're thinking about this process. And there is an underlying layer of atonement and guilt associated with the Virgo archetype, which I feel is very much instilled in this chart and in this energy in the next couple of weeks, probably the whole Virgo season that we'll be dealing with. That's going to be really paramount to how we're going to work with this energy going forward into the Mars retrograde period. And especially I think when Pluto moves into Aquarius. Okay, this is like the final months of fleshing this out. I'm not saying that it's going to be healed over the next final months, but you will be able to really actually see with clarity for the first time, perhaps in a while, what is it that is beneath the surface that is hurting you, that is not healthy for you. Okay, like something underneath the layer that it's almost like an itch or a tickle. Okay, and in a new moon, we don't see that, right? But today I'm talking to you on Monday, August 29th. So when you find this video, either today or the next few days, the moon today is in Libra, will be in Libra tomorrow, and it will progress into Scorpio, Sag, right, and so forth. So the moon will go from its new phase into a crescent phase. And so we'll begin to, the seed is planted, and then it will slowly, as the moon moves right through the signs, it will slowly reveal itself until we get to the Pisces full moon later in the month, where we might see this underlying guilt that we might be carrying in the full light, and we can heal it in that sense because the sun will still be in Virgo. And Virgo very much is a sign that is about healing, and we all have that Virgo archetype in our chart. We all have the Mercury, we all have the 6th house. So we all have this ability to heal ourselves in some way when we dig into it, into our chart in a deeper layer. And so on this new moon, it squared Mars and Gemini. And Mars is going to be having a very long 8th month cycle in Gemini, because it's going to go forward. It's going to go to 25 degrees. It will retrograde and go back to, I think, 8 degrees or 7 degrees, and then go forward again. And so this square is, I believe, bringing us to choices that are of the mental capacity, because it is in Gemini, that we have to deal with. And when I think about the Gemini archetype, I always think about the mythological story of Castor and Pollux. And, Castor was the mortal twin and Pollux was the immortal twin, and Castor ends up dying. And because Pollux is obviously immortal, he goes to Zeus and asks for immortality so that he can join his brother as well. And what ends up happening is they kind of actually work out a deal where they kind of can swap places at certain points. So they end up being together. And I should just make a mythological series at some point. But the point here is that this square is also in a closing square to the sun. Okay. And so one choice is going to not get carried into the future. And one choice will get left behind, and one choice will get integrated into the self, into the seed that's being planted. And so if you found yourself in the middle of conflicted ideas or conflicted feelings or conflicted choices, if you find yourself in the middle of some type of, it doesn't have to be crazy chaos, confusion, but there's something inside of you that wants to birth a new healthy way of life or idea or perspective, perhaps. But you are battling with what has been comfortable or what you're used to doing. That might have shown up for you, and Mars would have been stimulating that by the square aspect, because a choice has to be made, of course, and that's creates the tension of the square. Okay, so it's about a critical and mental challenge under this new moon that is very soft, in the sense, like it's not, you're not showing it yet. It's underneath the layers of the personality of the soul, and it might not feel like it's out there and ready to take charge and out for action yet, because it's dark. It's that new moon phase, but it's tingling, it's still there. And I also saw that under this lunation, that the moon also trined Pluto. So it doesn't show it here, but the moon will eventually, yesterday this happened. So if this happened on, late Saturday night or sometime on Sunday, even Monday early morning, the moon had moved to 26 degrees Virgo and made a trine to Pluto. So the trine is, again, like an easier aspect, but it was about revealing something subconsciously, that was some sort of truth or dynamic that could have been harsh, triggering words, honestly, because we're dealing with the moon here. So, there could have been something that was said or some information that was revealed, whether that was with yourself or a conversation that you heard, or, something in your local news that triggered you, for instance. Okay. an email, an old text, or even like when your phone like brings up an old picture, right? That you're going through like an emotional time, like say you're going through a breakup, whatever, and your phone brings up a picture, and it triggers you in some sense. I feel like that could have happened, which would almost dig into this process of the choices having to be made even deeper, like you giving an opportunity for us to look into even deeper into the self of what really can be taken with us and what resonates with you on a deep level and what doesn't. And I do want to say too that actually we'll get into the Venus. Okay, so while this is all going on, Venus is also opposing Saturn, which is a very big transit for us to look at, okay, over the next few days, because Venus is how we relate to ourselves. And generally the archetype is ruled, the planet is ruled by Taurus and Libra. So there's this duality of this planet of how we see ourselves, and then also how we see ourselves in relationship when reflected back through others. And because our relationships are always causing some sort of reflection or learning process or balancing process with our own value of ourselves. Okay, so you hang out with really awful people, you have really bad groups of friends, it might suggest that you don't really value yourself either. Okay, and it might be time to upgrade the people that you want to be surrounded by. Okay, because your vibe does attract your tribe, right? So that's what Venus does when we're in relationships to other people, or that's why when people leave one relationship and they really do the time to authentically learn about themselves and what happened in that dynamic, in that relationship, they can attract, I don't want to say level, I'm using level in quotes here, but they can attract something better for their soul's evolution, okay, in the next relationship. So Venus opposite Saturn in Aquarius is very much about how your inner creativity is valid and you should be able to express your unique self, okay, and live into what is truly of value to your creative purpose. And how is that being reflected out in your groups and your humanity and the groups of people that you are associated with, or the networks that you associate with. Okay, and this is very much linked to, for me on the personal level, the whole social media aspect right now. I realized I was never really vibing with Facebook and Instagram for so many reasons. And I did it because, businesses always quote unquote required you to have a social media platform, to succeed, or people to find you or things like that. But I started on Instagram like years ago, like over 10 years ago when it first started, and it was just all about pictures and like art. And I used to post like, just like mountain pictures and stuff. And it's just changed a lot for me, the whole dynamic. And I find that we're so disassociated on these kind of platforms. And again, this is just no judgment to people who love IG. This is just like my personal feelings about this and how this new moon is showing up, right? I didn't see myself, this Venus in Leo energy, I didn't see myself being authentic in that kind of structure, which is the Saturn in Aquarius. And because Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius, it's time for us to really do it in our own way and align with these Aquarian humanitarian themes in our own way, and find your tribes in your own way. What do you relate to? Okay. And it shouldn't be based on what we've been taught or what we've been told. And this will get into the Neptune trine Pluto aspect, because it's all blooming in this new moon chart. So incredible. So I was in this like dark space, not because I was like feeling bad. I was just sick. I was at home and, I was just scrolling through IG, and I was just like, this doesn't bring me joy. This doesn't bring me a good feeling. I don't get satisfaction from it. I don't feel connected. I actually feel annoyed. I don't feel like it's authentic. And I just decided I'm done. Like, I'm done. And then I saw, Joe Rogan had Mark Zuckerberg on his podcast, and Mark Zuckerberg had admitted to the fact that they changed the algorithm when it was election season, and a bunch of other stuff that they changed the algorithm for, and the FBI was associated with this and involvement with this. And so I really feel like that impeded on our freedom of speech and our authenticity and what we're being fed and digested, and the whole media and the war on truth right now is unveiling, right? So this Venus opposite Saturn was really like, is this authentic? And is this what I want to put my creativity into? Because it really isn't, like in YouTube, I love YouTube, like YouTube, because you can hear my voice. I literally, everything I'm saying is no bullshit. And it's a direct way to talk to people. I can't express the amount of depth of psychology and philosophy that I am trying to give out into the world. I can't share that through an Instagram post. Like, it's just not happening. So it really shined the light on this aspect for me. I was like, I don't resonate with this anymore. And of course, this had to do with my work, because this is why it was my 10th and 4th house axis, right? So you can look to where Leo is, what house Leo is ruling in your chart, and what house Aquarius is ruling. Okay, look to where these planets are, and look to where your sun is, because your sun is playing a part. And my sun happened to be in the Virgo house, so it was like, I can't be of service to humanity and be my own creative self through this app anymore, and I needed to let it go. And it was it seems silly, but that's why I'm saying we have a choice with the Mars square, the new moon, where it was like, it's very dark moment where it was so subtle, and it was such a little tiny thing, but it felt so powerful to let one die and to let one go and integrate something else like YouTube that is a part of that purpose and is a part of that healing journey that we're a part of. Okay, so I hope that makes sense as far as looking at the Venus, the opposite, the Saturn, okay? Because eventually that Mars is going to move up, and it's also going to trine that Saturn. So you're going to have an opportunity to integrate whatever immortal twin you chose to bring with you, right? The immortal part of yourself. You had to let one die. It was part of the story, and one had to die. But whatever one you choose to carry with you, you will get to integrate into that Saturn dynamic, okay? And I think that's when actually it's going to be such a beautiful, empowering part of this whole transit unfolding, because eventually Saturn's going to square Uranus. And if you're operating from a very authentic part of yourself, I believe that Saturn square Uranus won't tear any structures down. It actually could shift and move something erratically in a very fast pace for you that would lead to healing and growth and the direction that you really need to get jolted into. Okay, so because the Saturn square Uranus always isn't bad. It always isn't about tearing down. And I know a lot of astrologers talk about that, and they're not wrong, but I'm here to prepare people for what's ahead. And we can do that using astrology by deeply understanding what is in the present moment and in what's now. So at the same time too, Mercury was also trining Mars under this new moon. So Mercury in Libra, very diplomatic. Does this bring me stimulation and harmony? Mentally, you might be looking at two different sides of the spectrum in extreme cases. And that's very normal for Mercury and Libra to do, okay? Because it's trying to find mental balance and mental stimulation that feels like there's beauty in this, right? So if you're feeling frazzled and stuff, that might be an opportunity that what you're going towards doesn't really give you some peace. Because I'm a Venus ruled person. You want peace with Venus, okay? You want piece with Libra qualities. You know, you want love, you want beauty and things. So if it's making you feel like depressed and like you're going through these extreme chaotic moments, okay, lean into those extreme moments and you'll figure out what's not working by going and balancing that out. Okay, so the trine with Mars, it's just, to me, overstimulating that need to look at the choices, to look at the deep choices that you're really struggling with right now in your life. Okay, and we need to take in the whole chart to understand that. So as we step into the crescent phase of this this new moon, which I will just move the chart forward a little bit, because here we are today, the moon's in Libra, and I'm just going to put it to tomorrow on Tuesday, August 29th. The moon in Libra is now in a crescent phase, and it's a sextile crescent phase. It's moving into that, okay, before it goes to the first quarter. And the crescent phase is now symbolizing that the new roots, okay, are relative to your individual purpose. And now they begin to stimulate into a creative process. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're taking forth running full-heartedly, because it's really not, but it's beginning to have a little bit of light onto the seeds that's been planted. Okay, so it's a very, again, soft, slow process on this. You know, and this is right now this is a sextile crescent phase, okay, because there's phases in between the moon phases. And so this is a sextile aspect of this where it's almost easy enough to not integrate what you want to move forward with, because the sextile is easy, right? But moving into the crescent and moving into the first quarter phase of a moon is not easy, because you're going towards something new. So it's almost easy under this next couple of weeks to retreat back to what you're used to, what's comfortable. But the moon is moving forward. So it wants you to go into that new direction, that new change, or, you know, at least the choice that you did decide to go with. Okay. It wants you to lean forward into that. So I want you to be aware that as the days unfold this week, if you have meditated and reflected on these choices, okay, and you kind of have that direction on where you're going, it will be easy to want to slip back, but don't slip back. And just remember that that's just the comfortability of moving forward. You know, that's a part of that process. Like people who are born under crescent phases, or even first quarter phases, I think that, or if you're in a progressed lunar phase and the progressed crescent phase or progressed first quarter phase, I feel like it would be easy for you to slip back and not create the changes. Okay. This is more so for people who are born under these phases, but the reality is that pushing forward is what the soul is desiring. Okay. Moving in that new direction, knowing that you've accumulated everything. You've already done it from the past, like everything's already been accumulated. And so the new seed was planted for a reason, so that you can regrow something now and you can move forward in those choices. All right. So I really just wanted to point that out. Let me take a sip of my coffee. Okay. Because we are going to have a full moon coming up soon too, which of course there will be a video out for this, but a full moon will be coming out for Pisces full moon. I wanted to point out the sextile to Neptune retrograde, sextile Pluto retrograde. And this really was like, you know, I thought about this and I was like, how am I going to integrate this into this new moon video? Because it's outer planets, right? It does represent an outer consciousness that is not always within our immediate field. Unless you're an astrologer or deep in astrology, you understand that these dynamics can play forth, right? And it does represent you on a personal level and also things on a collective level. So, right now, again, because it's this sextile, okay, and it's a opening sextile between Neptune and Pluto, that it's easy again to resist the change. And there is an aspect where you can either be inspired by these new directions, or you can be taken by delusion in these new directions, right? And that's why it's really important for us to use this Virgo energy over this next Virgo season to be really clear and to be looking for the details and to be discerning about what is our truth and what isn't our truth, okay? And so I really felt like the important collective lesson and the important individual lesson while we are experiencing Neptune, sextile Pluto, both retrograde, which we will be for quite a while, is truth, is discerning what is your truth, okay? And the retrograde planets want you to go in your own way. They want you to reinforce these lessons on a very deep level, and it's not what the collective has told you, okay? And so what we've been dealing with Pluto and Capricorn for quite a while, and we're at the final months of it, even though Pluto will go back into Capricorn for a little bit of time next year. Ultimately, we're going to be stepping into Pluto and Aquarius next. We've been dismantling the power dynamics in our society and in our personal lives. Because society at some level or degree has had power over our personal lives. So we've been affected collectively and individually so incredibly potent authority dynamics. Okay. So it's like, what authority isn't resonating with you anymore? Right. So it's again, back to the Instagram thing. Instagram had a quote unquote authority over my business. Well, now it doesn't anymore, because it made me depressed. It made me feel the cold, hard dynamics of Saturn that isn't the powerful parts of Saturn. The powerful ones are, does this bring you structure? Does this make you feel grounded? Does this bring you like a sense of boundary that you feel protected by, or do you feel controlled by it? You know what I mean? So this time right now with this Neptune sextile Pluto, like it can be really easy for you to like resist the change. But if you start going within yourself and you free yourself of choices that you're making because you feel guilty on some type of level, then I think that it will lead you in a healthier direction, especially when all of our outer planets go forward. And why do I bring guilt into this? Well, a part of the Virgo lesson is that there is an underlying dynamic of atonement and guilt for things that you've done either in this lifetime or other lifetimes. And it's different for every soul. Every soul is individual. Of course, some of us have been kings and queens who probably have murdered and slayed thousands of people in these stupid wars and war games. And maybe that soul has guilt now and they're paying for it. Where others were incredible religious leaders and teachers that helped feed thousands and thousands of hungry people and don't have as much guilt, okay? Or maybe there are some parents that were persecuted for religious beliefs in other lifetimes, and they hold some type of religious guilt within their soul. Well, each individual has these different storylines, right? We're not all the same. And so your soul has enough guilt to carry for itself, never mind worrying about the collective unconscious guilt and then other people's guilt, right? And so part of this is for you to free yourself to make choices, healthy choices that can free yourself of any underlying guilt that you might feel. And there's different types of guilt that Jeffrey Wolfgrain talks about. There's natural law guilt, and then man-made guilt. Man-made guilt will come from religious dynamics, the patriarchy, institutions, right? Certain philosophies, certain belief systems, right? That have been basically like taught to you in those kind of realms. Okay, it might not align with you. And then the natural guilt will be felt from your own personal belief systems and your own philosophies, you know. And if you want to look into deeper dynamics of your own belief systems, well, look to Jupiter retrograde in your chart right now, because it's asking you to formulate your own. It's in Aries. It's asking you to be independent on your own beliefs, to dive into your unique chart and your unique purpose and free yourself from what religion and the patriarchy and society has wanted you to believe was a truth, right? And to go into your own way. So you'd look to Jupiter in Aries right now in your chart. You'd look to the Sagittarius house, and you would also look to the 9th house. And that could help you create a bigger understanding of your own personal belief structures, which I think, again, could help you relatively understand the whole dynamic of what the healthy choices might be right now for you to make, so that you can free your soul from any underlying guilts that are being experienced. Okay. And I guess I want to leave this off because on Clubhouse, I was in a big room, and Fauci's retirement came out under this Clubhouse topic, and I wasn't a speaker in this room. I was just listening. And regardless of how people feel about Fauci and his choices, this man has accumulated some type of guilt in this lifetime that he's going to carry and now have to heal in multiple lifetimes. And we can think about how this is going to manifest if we use our imaginations and we use the tools of astrology, and how difficult that might be, right? And so we have to have compassion and empathy for people who are struggling, for not only yourself, like absolutely have to have compassion for yourself during this process and these times, but also other people, you know, because we're all just humans, like having a same human experience, making choices, living life, having our own evolutionary process. And there was a lot of people in this Clubhouse that were saying, this man should pay, he should get everything that's coming to him, la 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 la. And I couldn't help but just sit there and was like, that is the problem. That is the problem why society and humanity doesn't heal, because there's always that guilt, there's always that punishment system, right? There's always that pointing the finger, rather than just sitting in somebody else's shoes, no matter if they are right or wrong, but just sitting in somebody else's shoes for a second and having compassion and empathy for the person, okay? Because you would want that same compassion and empathy when you make a wrong decision or a wrong choice, and we all do it because we're human. So, I really hope that these messages under this week really sit and resonate with you. And if you have any questions, leave a comment. If you're resonating with any of this material, please leave a comment. If anything stood out to you or was helpful, or, you know, just let me know how this is showing up and how you're feeling during these times, and we can connect via this way. And please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed my video. I will stop sharing the screen. Stop share. I just want to say I really appreciate everybody who hits like and subscribe, and who joins my channel and listens to my content, and shares how they're feeling too, and is open and vulnerable in that way. I know it takes a lot of courage. So I wish you guys well. I'm going to go get some juice and recover, and I'll be back again soon. Okay. Take care.